Hello, I'm Dr. Jeanette Raymond, psychologist, psychotherapist, and relationship expert, author of Now You Want Me, Now You Don't. This is my second in the series of relationship dynamics based on the way that we kind of eat. In the first episode, I talked to you about gobblers and how they get attracted to people who have never-ending wells of stuff to give and how things go wrong for them. Today I'm going to talk to you about nibblers and how they get attracted to people who prepare magnificent feasts and get disappointed because nibblers kind of don't take to feasts. So let's talk a little bit about nibblers. And I'm going to talk to you about Sophia, who was a nibbler, and Mark, who her husband was someone who prepared the most gargantuan, elaborate feasts that smelled good, tasted good, everything was good about it, like nobody could resist it. But Sophia could only nibble. She could take a little piece of this and a little piece of that, and then she would not be able to handle it. So when he came home from work and he gave her a big hug, she couldn't tolerate it. It was too much. She could just handle a peck on the cheek. She would withdraw, and he'd get really upset because he'd been looking forward to a nice hug and connecting and talking and sharing about each other's day. And he always felt like let down, like there was so much more that he needed to offer and to get that he couldn't have. And from Sophia's point of view, she was like overwhelmed with this giving and she couldn't handle it. She'd get choked and she could just handle a tiny little hug and a peck on the cheek. And, you know, in the evenings, if they were sitting watching TV or playing with the kids or whatever, Mark would want to create a nice atmosphere, you know, bring some snacks out, play some nice music, relax everybody, have fun, you know, make it informal. But from Sophia's point of view, it was just too much for her. She could handle like maybe one small game of, Snap or something with cards, and she couldn't take all the food and the music and the this and the that. It was all too much for her. So she would kind of want to create order and move away and do something else, and Mark would be so disappointed and feel sad, like he wasn't wanted, wasn't desired. The same in their sex life. He would want to, have lots of tenderness and foreplay and candles and romance, and she couldn't handle all that. She would choke on it. She just wanted to get it over with and move on, because it would be too scary for her, like as if she was being stuffed with 10 meals at the same time. So you can imagine how difficult it was for Mark and Sophia to have this kind of a mismatch in their relationship. Well, imagine what kind of childhood Sophia had. She grew up with parents who give her a little nibble, like you're feeding the dog. Here's a little treat, here's a little treat, but nothing would there would be no meal. She couldn't just sit on their lap and enjoy their company. It would be a little treat here, a little kiss here, a little peck there, a little pat on the back here, a little ruffle of the head there, whatever. Quickly tucking into bed and so on, not sitting with her when she ate, always being busy, doing something else, like she was the pet dog. A little treat here and a little treat there. And that's how her emotional system got trained in order to be in the world and not freak out. She had to nibble a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit here, but it had to be on tap. It couldn't be a short nibble and then hours before the next one. It had to be ongoing. And that's what made her feel calm, that she knew the bowl would never run dry. She could always go back for a nibble at her pace. And so when there was all this wonderful stuff that Mark was offering her, hugs and kisses and time and humor and music and romance, it was just impossible for her. And but she needed it to be on tap. So when Mark felt upset and like he wasn't doing the right thing, he would withdraw and the tap would run dry, and she'd get frantic and then try to bring him back into that place where he would offer the nibbles again. And of course they wouldn't be nibbles, they'd be big fat spoonfuls of food, emotional food that she couldn't handle, and she'd choke and then he'd get upset. Let's look at Mark's history. How do you think he grew up? Well, he had a very different experience. He was given a lot, but he was allowed to digest it at his own pace. If he wanted more, he could have it. He could make choices. He wasn't forced, nor was he starved, nor was he given nibbles and teased. It was a regular meal, a regular amount. There was some elasticity in it. He could have more or less. But he was also allowed to kind of tune into his own emotional digestive system and have more. If he wanted more cuddles with his mom, sometimes she'd give it, sometimes she wouldn't. But he could go to his dad. Sometimes he'd want them to read him 10 stories in bed and they'd only read him 5. But he learned that he could want, that it would be there, but there'd be some order, some structure, some give and take. It wasn't all his way, it wasn't all somebody else's way. And that's how he learned that he could give and he could receive, and it didn't always have to fit exactly, but that he was wanted by his parents. They didn't turn off the tap. They didn't say you're too much. They didn't say we can't handle you. They'd say, oh yeah, if you want to play, but maybe in another minute or so. And then they'd allow him to jump all over them and, play in the mud and do all sorts of funny things. But they'd also want to put him in the bath and clean him up and say, no, it's time for bed. So he had a bit of everything. And that's what he wanted to offer Sophia, but she wasn't in a place to do it. So they were always clashing in terms of what was okay with them or not. And it was very, very uncomfortable until they realized that, they did love each other. There was something there they wanted to work on, and they came to couples therapy. And I was able to help them by noticing when Sophia went, like that, when Mark was wanting to give it, he was like too understanding and too loving and too effusive, and I could see her throat constricting, going, ugh. And I'd say, Sophia, what are you feeling right now? And she'd say, I feel like I'm choking, it's too much, I can't take it in, I don't know what he's doing, but it's too much. And I could see Mark's hurt face. He would literally choke up with tears. So he'd be choking too, but in a different way. And I'd have to help him say, Mark, it's not that you're giving something bad. It's not that you're disgusting. It's not that you're undesirable. It's just that it's too much and too soon, and you're kind of not in tune with her pace, and she's not in tune with your pace and what you want to give, and whether the food is too rich or it's not rich enough. When you're brought up on nibbles, you don't get to taste caviar, you don't get to taste, exotic foods, you don't get to taste spicy and bland. It's just nibble, that's it. It's the same old thing all the time. You haven't developed a palate for the emotional experience of connection, of relationships, that has an entire palette of flavors and touches and sounds and feels. Sometimes a hug can feel constricting, and sometimes the hug can feel like you could take it 10 times tighter. So it really depends on what's going on for you, what you're used to, what you think the other person's intentions are, what you think the price you're going to have to pay for it. Is it free? Are you obliged? So many things. And it took a long, long time for Mark and Sophia to kind of work on these things and share their backgrounds with each other so that they understood each other better. And I helped them teeny baby steps at a time to check in with each other. Could you do with a hug? Is it too much? How does it feel now? Do you want me to stop? Kind of learning about each other just like you'd learn with someone new, someone you didn't know. You kind of have to play it and test it and try it and see, not just make assumptions and then feel bad when it doesn't work. And I also worked with each of them individually to help heal their pain and their hurt. without which they could not have done the couples work. And this is what I would like to share with you, that whatever you're going through in your couple life, you do also need to be healed individually, because there's scar tissue and scar tissue and scar tissue, and I can't really help, and most counselors would not be able to help, most therapists, until you have enough healing on your scar tissue that any tiny thing is not going to reopen that wound and put salt in it and make you stop the process, right? So they kind of have to be done in tandem, and that's important. So I look forward to hearing your comments, your experiences, your questions. I offer global, worldwide relationship coaching, and if you'd like to know more about that, please go to my website. There's a whole page on coaching, and you can email me on my secure website if you're interested in coaching, in therapy, if you're in Los Angeles, and whatever your needs are, I'll be happy to share them.